All right, everybody. Matt Colglazier here with Manny. Remind me of your last name. Pena from Diplimatico, a Venezuelan rum distillery that has been around since the late 50s, I believe. It was a Seagram's project at one point, and well, really, we're here to talk about the rums that they make, leading all the way up to this rum, which is very limited, very unique, and hopefully very delicious. I've never actually tried it before, so I'm really looking forward to that. So, Manny, why don't you tell a little bit about the location and a little bit of the history of Diplimatico, and then I'll just start like pouring this for myself and listening to you.
No, I don't think that's fair. I think you should do. You already had like all the historical facts in place. You already had everything. I think I should do the drinking. And you should do the talking. But if I must, Diplomático, it's a distillery that was founded by Seagram's in 1959. They were looking to build the biggest, baddest distillery to be able to fulfill all their product production throughout the Americas. So they were doing stuff like Crown Royal there. They were doing all the Seagram's line. They were doing Gordon's that my grandma and my grandfather were drinking. They were doing like Hennessy, they were doing Kahlua, they were doing Grand Marnier, they were doing Cointreau. So I mean, like the training and the know-how of this specific location was inherited by us, and it's like we are making cookies in an industrial kitchen. It's like really you don't need all this equipment and maybe not all the know-how to be able to make rum, but we have access to it, and I think that's what allows us to make great rum. We are right on the foothills of the Andes Mountains, where we have big influence from the Caribbean coast. Think of Venezuela being in South America, but we are right in the center of the Caribbean. We have more Caribbean coastline than all the Caribbean islands if you stitch them together. So when you're talking about 33,000 kilometers of Caribbean coastline, when that hits the foothills of the Andes, and then we are so close to the equator line that we only have two seasons. We have rain and we have hot and rain. And during the day, it's on an average about 102 degrees. At night, it goes down between 45 and 50 degrees. So this humongous temperature fluctuation is what makes great rum and ages rum very well and grows cane like wildfire. It's really, really important to mention the water that we have, the National Park of Terepaima, in the specific region where we are is called La Miel because the water is so sweet and soft, which it makes up pretty much what Diplomático is.
Yeah. And so for people who maybe know a little bit from their bourbon history, because MGP, which is a very large distillery in Indiana, so a lot of our customers know about MGP. So they're very familiar with the Seagram's history of quality control. So like, when Four Roses was owned by Seagram's, when MGP Lawrenceburg was a Seagram's facility, all the quality control labs that were there, even like the little glass toppers on all the tasting glasses, which may or may not be down there in Venezuela, but they took so much time because their history was all about blending whiskeys. So to make something like Crown Royal, to make Seagram's VO, which people kind of they look down on now, but at that time when you were trying to create blended whiskeys that everybody could drink and that you could mix with anything, Seagram 7 would be a really good example. A 10 million case brand, things like that were just, they had to have quality control that was at such a high level. So to know that the bones of this distillery, the history of how it was built and why, and who did it, and how even 50, 60 years later, that quality is still there from the original plant is really cool. So maybe I'll pour this one, and then you can give us a little bit of background on each item.
Absolutely.
This is the Ambassador.
Yeah, you'll be pouring Ambassador. As you mentioned,
Oh my God.
heavy topper.
Yeah.
So this is the traditional range. We have a Mantuano. The Mantuano, we have Planas, and we have the Receta Exclusiva. Planas, it's our white rum, but it's an aged white rum. It's rum that is half of it is molasses, half of it is cane honey, aged for 6 years. And after we age it for 6 years, we run it through charcoal filtration. And after that, we bottle at 47%. So this is a higher proof tiki cocktail mixology, elevating the cocktails within the range of this like no alcoholic aggressiveness and the complexity in the mouth. It's really unique.
Let me talk about the difference between molasses-based rum and cane honey, which you referred to there, because I don't know that everybody would know that.
Absolutely. Molasses, in our case, we use rich molasses, which are molasses who have a sugar content between 45 and 55%. Cane honey, on the other hand, it's taking fresh cane juice, evaporating the water, and ending something similar consistency to maple syrup. Sugar content between 80 and 95%. Okay. So much, much higher content. But when you compare rich molasses to the rest of the world, which uses blackstrap, which you very familiar with the term, blackstrap, it's pretty much the bottom of the barrel when it comes to quality of molasses. So it's molasses who have on average between 12 and 14%. Right. And the highest amount of carbon allowed by human consumption. So it's our molasses have almost 10 times more sugar than the traditional molasses, and our cane honey, it's double that. So this is where we separate from the rest of the crowd as far as raw materials. But as far as distillation, we have three unique methods of distillation, which we inherit, as we mentioned, from the Seagram's projects. The first one is a French column, which is called the Barbette. It's Emily Barbette, which is a genius of the French distillation. He invented this column especially for Seagram's to develop alcohols who are made in a continuous way, but developing a lot of congeners, a lot of flavoring. Where normal, when you run alcohol through column, you end up with vodka. You strip everything out. The second still, it's directly Canadian inherents. This is the Canadian still. It's called a batch kettle, which is a 50,000 liter drum of discontinued distillation attached to a small column to rectify the gases, and it makes a semi-heavy rum, very, very delicious. And then the third alcohol, which 80% goes into the receta exclusiva, and 100% goes for the single vintage and the ambassador. This still was brought into Venezuela from Scotland in 1959 from the first Strathisla distillery in Scotland.
I've seen pictures of these. I mean, they look. I mean, obviously they are Scottish still, so they've got the swan neck and the copper, and it'd be very familiar to people.
They were actually readjusted to make rum in the configuration, the geometric configuration. But the main still, it's 187 years old. Yeah. This survived the fire of the Strathisla distillery. That after it was removed from there, I think like 10, 15 years, it was a big fire. They lost everything. So this was one of the surviving stills from the Strathisla distillery. And then we blend these rums into a different proportions into. So when I said the Planas is 50% molasses, 50% cane honey, is of those different stills. This one, the Mantuano, is 60% molasses and 40% cane honey, where our receta exclusiva, which is 90% of our total sales. So when somebody thinks of Diplimatico, they're not thinking about, I'm not talking about this, I'm not talking about anything else but this gorgeous green bottle. It's 80% cane honey and 20% of the other two stills. This is aged for 12 years, and this is probably like one of my favorite rums in the market. Then we go up from receta exclusiva to single vintage, which is 100% those stills, 100% cane honey, 1 additional year in Oloroso sherry cask, 12 years in bourbon. Then we bottle this at 43. Then the one that you have right there, the ambassador, it's 100% that those copper pot stills aged for 12 years and an additional 2 years in Pedro Jimenez sherry cask, and then bottle at cask strength. This was when it joined the cask at 65% alcohol. And when we bottled at 47% natural, we lost all that percentage of alcohol. The volume that we lose on average is between 6 and 7%, 6 and 9 a year, which it's So when you think of this,
that's why it's so expensive. It's a lot of money.
We fill a barrel to make the 12-year-old, and we lose 60% of the total value in 12 years. So this is what makes Diplimatico probably one of the most flavorful rums out there. This is all natural flavors. Like there's no additives.
Yeah, I usually tell people about Diplimatico who are looking. They're ready to kind of graduate from.
This is the gateway rum.
From the Bacardi. Yeah, they're ready to graduate from the Captain Bacardi world, but they're not quite ready, like Jamaican, like Hamilton, like that super funky style of rum. And they're looking for something in between where I like this because it's got all these like very nice lifted fruit notes to it, those tropical fruit notes, and like you said, it's a balance of a couple different distillates. A little bit in the rum agricole style where you're going to get that lifted fruit note, but it doesn't have any of like the heavy Jamaican pot still funk about it. It's just got this nice, clean, balanced flavor throughout. So let's do two things. Why don't we try the Planas first, and then we'll skip over here to this to kind of get the idea. Because this, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, these are both 12 years, same base, but then this one is finished for an additional 2 in PX. Sherry.
1 year.
And this 1 year in Oloroso.
Base, 1 year Oloroso, 1 year, 2 years PX.
Okay. Yeah, and for people who don't drink PX sherry, which is like 99.9% of everybody, to try to explain to some folks how super sweet like PX sherry actually is, it's like nuclear sweet. So it's actually a great X cask for things because that so much of that flavor comes through from those barrels.
And these barrels from the Soleras, we use barrels of a minimum of 30 years. So the Soleras for PX are the youngest barrels that we receive are 30-year barrels, which it's really unique in flavor. But the white, which it's what I said, it's not a fair white. It's not a fair fight to other white rums because you don't, even at 47%, you don't feel any aggressiveness in the nose. And then when you're able to taste this, it does not taste like a white rum. It's much more silky. The weight of it in the back of the mouth, like you have like almond, like almost toast notes. It's delicious. And for color preservation now with like summer juices, it's just perfect.
Get the vanilla, and then you get all of that tropical fruit out in the mid palate. It's got this just nice clean finish to it as well. Like I said earlier, very balanced, but still a lot of flavor. And you can see why bartenders would love it so much. Maybe not the bottle shape, but but definitely what's in the bottle. Delicious. Okay, so that is the Planas. Now we're going to try the Ambassador. This is the top of the line. This is
I call this Problematico.
Problematico.
Because I cannot get enough, and we launched. I remember 4 years ago, and within 2 weeks, I started getting phone calls like crazy. We got into the top 5 rums in Wall Street Journal, and that pretty much broke the whole system because it's now like very sought after and very problematical for you to get your hands on. But I'm very happy that you guys have some here in Indiana. There's a few to sell, so lucky state.
Definitely get more of like the almond and some of the nuttier notes on this one.
Yeah, when you approach, like immediately what you get out for me, it's port. Like even if you like, not even if you're looking for rum, it's like what you're getting. It's like that almost like racing situation. There.
Yeah, like clover honey for some reason.
But the most impressive thing about this product after you taste is the complexity, it's the longevity in the mouth, how long this actual sits from the moment that your taste buds get hit with this in your body's like, please get rid of this, and the alcohol is just like, I'm not going anywhere. And I'm like, I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna sit here for a long time. And this is where it's not just flavor, that complexity you cannot replicate. You could slap a 50-year-old on the bottle and will not give you the complexity that an actual product that it has complexity that has been aged properly in wood could give you. So I think like this is what makes Ambassador so special.
Definitely get like the raisin and some of the leather, some of that oak spice coming in on the finish as well. And like you said, I mean, it's a 30, 45, 60-second finish. It just kind of keeps going on.
Still there. And as we're still talking, I haven't taken my second sip and I'm in my mouth still trying to get rid of this complex alcohol. And this is what makes this really special.
You don't suggest people mix this with their
after they buy it from you,
you don't care.
It's not that I don't care. I respect what you do behind closed doors.
There you go. Well, first of all, thank you for visiting us today at the office, and hopefully people learned some valuable facts about Diplomatico and get to explore, not just a chance to buy a few of these, which is fantastic and really a collector's item and definitely a trophy or a showpiece on somebody's bar that hopefully they enjoy, especially for some of the hardcore rum drinkers out there. And they're becoming more and more. As premium rum grows, having access to these is really important. So hopefully the political situation in Venezuela, stays somewhat reasonable for a time and continues to improve, hopefully, and that folks get access to these fantastic rums. So thank you for your time so much. Cheers. Cheers. Say it at the end.